Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Stratch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the ADC tier list for 1410. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the rest of the content as well. We did do a support tier list video a few days ago if you're interested in that. I'm going to try to bring you some more content over the summer here, like a revised one-trick guide, some other, individual champion guides, definitely Recon, maybe a few others that I play as well. So I'm going to try to give you some new and updated guides and see if I can do at least one or two of those per week, in addition to streaming every night and doing the tier list. And I'm going to try to do tier lists for at least support and ADC, and maybe do some other roles as well. So I'm going to give you guys more content. If you do want to see the stream, I'm going to be streaming most nights around 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, usually going till about 1 a.m. I don't have classes in the summer, but I still have to take my daughters to school in the morning, so I can't stay up too late, unfortunately. But anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and get in here. So a lot has changed about ADCs, but also a lot has not particularly changed in terms of which champs are going to be strong in ways that people had thought. A couple of things have shifted for sure. But ADCs in general, if we look at kind of their PBI here, there's nothing that's really like hard dominating ADC right now. So you've got like Jinx and Draven are at 52%. But most other mainstream champs, like Misfortune's at 51, but there's really nothing that gets picked with any frequency that is like 53 plus, which means it's reasonably balanced overall. I think there are a lot that are under 50% though, so I would say like over half of the ADCs are under 50% win rate right now. And everybody, myself included, thought that ADCs were going to be stronger because the Infinity Edge buffs, or at least the critical strike ones. But it looks like the lethal tempo nerf is definitely taking a toll on a lot of ADC. So who's still good? Who's still worth playing? And keep in mind, I had people in the comments to my support video be like, "Well, this is like good, but it's not like certain champions aren't really good past gold or whatever." And it's like every tier list is going to be a little bit different. But my tier lists, I'm really looking at Emerald minus for this because that's where 95% of the player base is. And I think that, the meta starts getting skewed once you get into like Diamond Plus with the 5%, and then really like into like Bronze and Iron, it gets a bit different too. So I'm really aiming to just give some useful advice to the most people as possible that might watch this. I don't think there's a lot of pro players and challengers watching my videos. There might be some, but this is supposed to be stuff that can actually help you decide what you might want to try to play on this patch to get some more wins. So it's not a commentary on like what I think is going to do well in pro, or what challengers are going to do well on, like what streamers are going to do well on. It's really a commentary on what, kind of the 95% of people that are like Emerald minus are going to do well on. So, and some of this stuff does carry through in a higher elo, but some of it's going to be very, very different. So for example, like right now in the mid-season invitational, which is great, by the way. I'd highly recommend watching it. There's a lot of interesting picks, a lot of cool stuff going on. A lot of the top picks are like Callista, Varus, Senna. Now, it is a different patch, but even on, 14.8 that it's being played on, those champions still, I would say, are not amazing for most people in solo queue for a variety of reasons that we'll talk about. So, it is kind of dependent on the elo. And the reason for that is just the kind of mechanics that are required to play that champ, the kinds of supports and awareness that are required to play certain champs, and whether you're weak side or strong side can depend a lot. So certain ADCs, if you camp for them and, put a lot of resources into them, like Draven, for example, and make sure that he gets his kills, yes, he's really strong. But if he gets weak-sided, your jungler never comes bot, their jungler just perma-camps bottom, that's going to be a huge problem. And ADCs really suffer from that more than, I would argue, any other position, because you require a lot of gold. Like, you have to have gold, you have to get going with most ADCs, and if you don't have gold, then you're worthless. So usually most ADCs are squishy, they're immobile, they have low utility in terms of stuns or team buffs or whatever. So they really just have to have damage. And if they don't have damage, they don't do anything. Versus, if a mid laner or a top laner, depends on what it is, but if they get a little bit behind, usually they're going to have some stuff they can do. And if nothing else, they're going to have levels. ADCs aren't even going to have levels. Usually they're some of the lowest level roles in the game. So it's tough to be an ADC out there. But just keep all of that in mind. And some of it is situational and judgment calls, and I will try to mention that type of stuff where I can. But that is a big difference between like a tier list for gold players, a tier list for like diamond players, and a tier list for pro players, that type of thing. Okay, so I think Jinx is really good. It's no secret, Jinx has been very good for several patches now. She received a lot of buffs a little while ago, and she synergizes very well with most of the changes going on here. So Infinity Edge was the big story of this patch. If you missed my support tier list where I kind of explained some of the patch notes changes, I did a full patch notes video too. It's like an hour and 45 minutes long. I don't know if I'm going to release that. It's just so long, and I covered a lot of that material again in the support tier list, so I'll probably just skip it, even though I spent like, 2 hours recording it. But it's 100 more gold for Infinity Edge, and these stats are not accurate on this. I'm pretty sure it's 80 gold. It's 25% crit and it's 80 gold, unless they hot nerfed it or something. No, there we go. There's the stats. So, extremely powerful item. It's 112% efficient now without its passive, and that's an incredibly strong passive where all of your crits do 50% extra damage. So, really, really good. So that changed. So a lot of critical strike ADCs are very good. Jinx is great with critical strike. And a big part of that is her rockets give extra AD. Her Pow Pow rockets, or the switcheroo, whatever, rockets do an additional 10% AD. So when that crits, then that 110% gets multiplied by the 250% off of Infinity Edge and all that stuff. So really, really good. And she also can get a lot of attack speed if she really needs that. So for taking towers, taking barons, things like that, she already gets 130% extra attack speed when you stack it up. So she did use lethal tempo. She did like lethal tempo, but she can at least get a lot of attack speed herself whenever she's shredding towers and shredding barons and stuff like that. In a lot of team fights, you're probably going to stay on rockets, and she has a lot of range with those rockets too. But if you get to speed her up, then or if you're trying to shred tanks or whatever, a tank that's in your face, you can still get a lot of attack speed, so that's good. She has reasonable poke with her W, can do quite a bit of damage, great to kind of chain together with other CC, really long range, so that's handy. These chompers are like pretty good to chain together, so if you have a Leona or a Nautilus that goes in, and you just throw those chompers on top of them, get that extra stun. It's pretty nice. It's a 1.5 second root for just 1 point. So that's a lot of CC for a 1 point ability. And it's got pretty long range. I think the range is the same range as her auto attacks. It could be a little bit longer. It doesn't say here, but it's really nice chain CC. And then she just, keeps blasting them with her gun. And then she has a super short cooldown R, which does a lot of damage to execute people. So almost every game, you're probably going to pick up at least 1 or 2 kind of free kills for someone who's, backing on a ward or just, not paying attention, and the rocket comes flying and it gets him. So it's very good. And then, of course, if she gets a kill, then she's one of the best ADCs at snowballing off of that. It doesn't list her passive here, but she gets a lot of extra movement speed and attack speed and all that. Or if they try to come contest a dragon or contest a tower that they shouldn't be contesting that you're about to take, you take it, then you can run them down and kill them. So really, really good sustained damage. Good push in the laning phase with the rockets. Good sort of just sniping free kills with your R at some point in the game. Extremely high scaler. She's going to be one of the best in the game. If she just gets protection and just gets to sit there and fire rockets on the back line, then she's just going to hard dominate. So like most ADCs, she's going to be switching over to Fleet. Conquer, I just don't think is really that viable on supports anymore because they only get 1 stack per basic attack. And you have to auto attack 12 times to get max stacks on this to get the 8% healing. And it's only 5% healing after that. So I just think Conquer is probably garbage. Press the attack is another option. They did change it now to where it still does the bonus damage, but instead of your entire team dealing an extra 8%, you do an extra 8%. But I believe that's 8% to all targets as long as you stay in combat. You just have to hit the same target 3 times in a row, and then you get the 8% on everybody, I believe, even if you switch targets, as long as you stay in combat. I think. I could be wrong about that, but I believe that that's how that works. So that's pretty good. But Fleet does give you good sustain in the laning phase. It did nerf the sustain slightly, but later on in the game, you do get a little bit more movement speed when you're hitting people. And that is handy just to get that extra little bit of chase down potential or kite potential, whatever you need. Now, these secondaries are a little bit odd. The Cosmic Insight and Biscuit Delivery, I would assume that Gathering Storm is probably better. I mean, it kind of depends on how long lanes are going. But yeah, most people overwhelmingly are going Gathering Storm, so I'm not sure. I guess this technically has a higher win rate at 54%, but there's 7,000 instances of that, and there's 150,000 instances of this. So I would probably stick with Gathering Storm and Absolute Focus, because that's just going to give you, you know, the most amount of damage. And I mean, if you do want to go into Inspiration, you could do like Jack of all trades and at least get 5 Jack stacks. It's going to be really hard for her to get to 10, but you know, that would give you 10 Adaptive Force, which is like 6 AD on your first back and 5 Ability Haste, and then you could get potions to get you through the lane. But really, I think you probably just want the Gathering Storm Absolute Focus. Okay, and then as far as their items, I would rush Infinity Edge most of the time. It does have a higher win rate. It does have a lower pick rate, but I think a lot of people just aren't reading patch notes. Like Kraken Slayer doesn't have Critical Strike anymore. I think you really want crit, because if you're going to get Infinity Edge, you want more Critical Strike for the Infinity Edge. So I would go Infinity Edge, and then Phantom Dancer is pretty good. The stats on this are not accurate here either. They took all the attack damage off, or they gave it more attack speed. But I would honestly probably just go Hurricane. They changed this around where it doesn't do on-hit damage, but now it scales with extra physical damage. It's like 55% of your total AD on the... And whenever your little bolts go out, those are all rockets if you're in rocket mode. So that means they all do splash damage. So if there's 3 people that are piled up in a team fight, you auto-attack and 3 of those little rockets go out. They all explode and splash damage on each other. So it's going to be like 9 hits on that. Now those other ones are smaller hits, right? It's like a little bit over 50% of an auto attack, so it's 55% of your total AD. But that's still a lot. That's basically 2 empowered auto attacks if you do like the 50% plus 50% for the little rockets, and they splash and hit everybody. It's a lot of damage. It is a lot of damage with the rockets. And it helps you with your wave clear. So yeah, single target shredding tanks, Phantom Dancer is probably going to be a little bit better. It's going to have more attack speed, and you're going to have the movement speed to kite. But man, this in team fights, this is amazing. And I don't know if this is wrong or right or whatever, but like third item, you can either go the arrows, Yuntao Wild Arrows. I think those are good once you have Infinity Edge, so it gives even more damage on your critical strikes. And again, with the splash damage off of the Hurricane Bolts, those can crit. So if those little bolts crit, it still is going to do the 35% of your total AD. Total AD. So not the damage that your little auto attack does with those rockets, the 55% damage, it's of your total AD. So that is a lot. So if your total AD is 200, and those little bolts do 50%, again, they do like 55, but just for easy math, they do 50% damage. Jinx arrows say that you do 35% of your total AD over time. If your little bolt crits, then it's going to do 35% of the 200. So it's going to end up doing 70 extra damage instead of 100 extra damage. So that's 70%, right, extra damage on those little bolts. So you see how that starts to get pretty wild when you have something that splashes and does AoE that can also crit. Wait, we'll see Twitch with that here in a little bit too. But that's really, really good with these wild arrows, I think. And then Lord Dominic's regards, depending on how many tanks they have, you do want this in your build at some point. It is competing with these Yuntao arrows, but again, I'm not sure which one you'd want to get here. But that's what I would do. So Hurricane actually got buffed pretty hard, in my opinion, for crit users. And I think most crit users should heavily consider using this if they have good interactions instead of Phantom Dancer. But yeah, just Infinity Edge Rush, Hurricane, and then either Lord Doms or the arrows, and then whichever one you don't get third, get it fourth, and you're probably good. If you need a defensive item, then of course something like a Guardian Angel or a Bloodthirster. Now, Bloodthirster doesn't have crit anymore. If you do need a lot of lifesteal, I guess that's okay. It does have a lot of AD, and she does have an AD amplifier with her, well, with a lot of things, actually. You know, with the arrows, with the Yintao arrows, that's total AD. Your rockets are total AD, and your Hurricane bolts are total AD. But the Hurricane bolts also scale off crit, and those other things also scale off crit. So, I'm not really sure about that, but I would not probably do Bloodthirster in most situations on Jinx, unless it's really late game and you just really want to clap people. Okay, so Jinx, incredibly good. Obviously works best if you have an Enchanter or some kind of Protector tank to go with her. She can get engaged on pretty easily by something like a Nautilus or a Leona or whatever. She doesn't have a dash. But if you can protect her, and especially if she's going to be on strong side, if you're going to get some ganks from your jungler, or at least don't expect to be camped by the enemy jungler, then she can be pretty good. But even in situations where she is going to be pressured, a lot of times she can still do well because she can just push the wave so fast with rockets if she needs to, if she sees enemy jungler on a ward or something, and then just back up and just wait. So, very strong champion. Highly recommend trying her out in solo queue. She's the most popular pick also on this patch. Okay, Jhin. So, I know that Butter is going to hate this. Butter My Tushy from the stream, longtime supporter of the channel, just absolutely hates Jhin. But I'll tell you what, man, I think Jin's really good. And again, this is a type of champ that is going to get punished in higher elos because, you know, people are going to know, challengers and pros are going to be looking, and they're going to see when he's going to do his fourth shot, and they're going to know he's going to be vulnerable for that, you know, second and a half, 2 seconds to reload. So then they're going to, you know, go on him and punish him for that. But in lower elos, people are going to give you that reload for free most of the time. They're not going to be pressuring you. And, you know, if they do that, then he's really good in the laning phase, right? He has very good push with his grenades. Also gets some incidental poke on the enemy a lot of times whenever you're doing that. W is extremely good follow-up CC. So if they're slowed, or, you know, your Leona, your Nautilus, your Rakan, whatever goes in, you can chain it together with your W, throw your E under them for an extra little slow, and then just run them down and kill them a lot of times. These traps are also a pretty good deterrent for ganks if you have them in the right places. So if you keep them in different choke points and things like that, it really can give you that extra, you know, second or two to escape, which can make all the difference. So pretty good overall, and that's another thing that can help you push too, right? If you start dropping these things and then you, you know, W the wave and grenade the wave, he can push super fast, so that's handy. And he doesn't really need attack speed, so he was one of the few ADCs that actually didn't get lethal tempo. So he's not affected by that. Everyone else got nerfed just about that ran lethal, he didn't. So that's already a big win for him. So you probably just want to do footwork. Presence of Mind early is good on him because you can spam those grenades. And as long as you're sort of tapping the enemy with one of those grenades every now and then, you almost have infinite mana early on. And he can be kind of mana intensive if you're looking for trades with the grenades, with your W in the laning phase. So usually that's a good idea. And then Bloodline will give you some extra lifesteal, which is handy. I would probably go Coup de Grace. They have cut down, but I think Coup de Grace just makes a lot more sense, especially with your ultimate, especially if you're going to be getting the Collector. That just makes more sense. And then I would probably go for Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm off of him. So the items on Jhin, a lot of people are doing Collector, and that does make sense. Serrated Dirk is very good on him. Collector historically has been a nice item. It still gives you the critical strike, but as you can see, Infinity Edge still has a higher win rate overall. Jhin just really wants AD, and he really wants crit. So, like, lethality is cool, but that only has 55 AD. This is going to have 25 more AD on it. Because a lot of his bonus from his passive is just, like, gives him extra AD, and then obviously the extra AD works really well with his crit, works really well with his ultimate. There's a lot of stuff. So you want the AD. So I would probably go Infinity Edge, and then second item. Yeah, have some options. I think if you're gonna get Collector, you probably want to get that first. Just because the lethality is going to fall off the more armor people get later on in the game. You could go, and he obviously likes Rapid Fire Cannon. Now, this got changed. I think it's probably a nerf for Jhin because it got rid of the AD. Now it has Critical Strike. But just that extra range for your fourth shot is obviously really good. So you could go Rapid Fire second, or you could just go these Gentile Arrows second. That I mentioned before with Infinity Edge and Gentile, because you know you're going to get a crit on your fourth shot, so you know these wild arrows are going to be popping. So I don't know necessarily if you want to get that second, but that definitely is an option. I think that would line up for a really good 1-2-3 if it's Infinity Edge, Gentile, or Doms. You're just going to hit like an absolute truck on your abilities if you do that. So you can do the Rapid Fire Cannon. It is still going to have crit, but the AD is going to be very wimpy on it. If we look here. Now, he does convert attack speed to AD at an equivalent ratio. Now, I don't know, because they changed the ratio on attack speed now to where it's worth, like, more gold than it used to be worth. So I'd have to check out his let me just look here since I got him pulled up, what his since they changed around the formula, what his conversion rate is. Bonus attack damage equal to 0.25% per 1% bonus attack speed. Okay, so pull this over here for you guys. Okay, so we've got 0.25 times 35, 9 AD. That's not a good conversion. Yeah, that's not a good conversion at all, because one AD is 35 gold value. And so attack, I'm pretty sure its attack speed is valued at 30 now, which is I mean, it used to be valued much lower at like 24 or something. But yeah, that's a horrible conversion rate. My God, I thought it was kind of close. I thought it was like a similar equivalency, but that's really bad conversion rate. Am I doing that right? Let me see. Dagger is 300 gold and gives you 10. Yeah. Yeah, it's 30 per 1% attack speed. So attack speed is just kind of a ripoff now, I think, on a lot of items. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. So it's like you're paying a lot. I mean, those Gentile Wild Arrows have 65 AD on them. Right? So you're getting the same crit. You're getting 9 attack damage on it. And yeah, you're getting the sharpshooter thing, but the Gentile is going to give you more damage. I'm almost certain it will end up being more damage than the 60 bonus on hit magic damage you get every now and then. The 35% on every crit. 35% of your total AD. And it's going to have like 55 more AD. That's crazy. Right? Like, it's 2,000 gold worth of extra AD. Yeah, you get attack, like you get some movement speed. Movement speed has value, 50 gold or whatever it is each for movement speed, but that's not going to kill somebody. I mean, I guess technically it could, but like, okay, knock off 350 gold off of that. You're still like, it's still like 5 kills worth of gold or 6 kills worth of gold you're giving up by purchasing this instead of a serious AD item. Like Gentile, I think, is a great option at 65. I mean, the other option, Doms, is you probably don't want that second. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world second. but you probably don't want it second. I mean, even Bloodthirster at 80, like, that doesn't have crit on it, but 80 AD is a lot. So, yeah, it's 80 attack damage. I mean, it does have lifesteal, which is pretty nice. I mean, I guess if you're in a tough lane and you already bought Vamp Scepter to try to make it through the lane, you just don't have the crit anymore. But it's still 110% efficient. It feels kind of weird to buy that with Infinity Edge. But it does give you, at level like 11 or something, if you complete this as second item, effectively like 155 extra health for fights. And then you have the lifesteal. It doesn't have attack speed on it, but whatever. That's a garbage stat we've seen anyways. So, is 15 extra AD worth losing 25 crit? So 25 crit, I believe crit is still 40 gold each. It's 1,000 gold. So 15 AD. Probably not on Jhin. I don't know. A lot of people are, you know, trying out Bloodthirster, but yeah, not having crit on it is a big deal. Like, just offensive stats, 25 AD or 25 crit is worth 1,000 gold. The extra 15 AD is worth 525, and the Gentile arrows actually do damage, right? Versus this is just protection. So this is like a hybrid item that maybe after you already have your crit items could be worth it, but probably not. I mean, I think Gentile. I don't know. We'll test it out as soon as Jason comes back into town. I think tonight he plays a lot of Jhin. We'll see, and you know, just go check out One Trick Jhins and you know see what they're doing too. But my instinct is probably Infinity Edge, Gentile, Doms. If you're just really looking to clap, and then maybe after that, if the attack range really, really matters, I guess you can get Rapid Fire Cannon. But just remember, you're giving up 2,000 gold to get the extra attack range every now and then for one shot. Is that worth it or not? And then if you want something that's got kind of a friendlier build path, I don't think this has a BF sword in it anymore. It might. But Collector, you know, is pretty good as well. It's the most popular one, although I'm not sure of its gold value. It's 110% efficient. I think wasn't Infinity Edge very close to that? 111%. So they're very similar. This does have a BF sword in it. So, and all of these stats are nice with the lethality and this post mitigation. So I don't know. Maybe it is Collector. Maybe you should be going Collector because the Infinity Edge passive isn't going to do a lot until you have enough crit to consistently do it. But Jhin does get a guaranteed crit on his fourth shot, so they both have a similar win rate. Infinity Edge is a little bit higher, but especially if you don't want to get Rapid Fire Cannon, maybe just Collector, Infinity Edge, Gentile arrows, and then the or Dom's fourth, and that would give you 100% crit, and would probably be pretty good. So anyways, I think Jin's really good right now. Those are some of the different builds. Now, Misfortune is one that I think a lot of people are probably sleeping on. She's kind of been out of fashion, I guess, for a little while. And Misfortune is almost always, like, in my opinion, a decent pick because she's so easy to play. She's so forgiving. And especially, this is almost like Sona, right, on my tier list. Especially if you're in, like, gold or silver or even, like, low platinum or something. Just having the ability to just press R in a team fight and not have to worry as much about constantly attack moving and repositioning and switching targets. Just press R when everyone's clumped up and you'll just delete everybody. So that's really nice. Or if you have kind of questionable back timings, or if you die a lot, you can at least run back to lane faster with her. You can rotate faster. And she just has really nice setup too for ganks. It's a point click slow. So she doesn't have like the stun or the root like the Jhin with the W, Jinx with chompers, but she does have a slow to help your support land that initial hook or land their initial, you know, piece of CC or whatever. So that's pretty handy. The strut is nice, like I said, for, you know, making it back to lane. One of these, yeah, this gives her the attack speed too. So if you max strut second, that doesn't fully make up for losing out on lethal tempo. She also didn't get lethal tempo, I think, most of the time. But it does give you a nice amount of attack speed already built in. And then the Q is a very good way to, you know, just kind of poke and harass people in the lane. If you want it, is she taking PTA? She's taking first strike. That's a little curious, feels a little greedy. I mean, if you're hanging out in the back and you just press R, then yeah, it's nice. If they don't touch you first. Is that just like the new meta? I mean, a lot of people aren't playing her. PTA is about as popular. First strike has a higher win rate. I think maybe I would go PTA here because you can trigger it pretty easily with your Q basically being an auto attack reset, just auto Q auto and you got it. But that is for closer range combat. First strike, I'm assuming, is much better for later in the game. And I would do Jack of all trades. If you're going to do first strike, do Jack. So like the other champs that I've talked about, it's hard to get the 10 stacks. You can do it. All you have to have is Doran's Blade. You have to go Mercury Treads with her, though. So you're going to lose out on a little bit of attack speed there. A little bit of attack speed if you do that. But you're going to get access to like 8 more AD. And more ability haste. 5 more ability haste. If you do that. So you're going to get paid off. You're going to get 500 something gold worth of stats. Technically, I guess 35% attack speed on Berserker Creeds or whatever it is worth, you know, about 1,000 gold too. But you do get the tenacity and the magic resist on top of it. But you have to go Mercury Treads to comfortably be able to do it. And then you go Zeal plus Serrated Dirk or Moat. So if you go Moat, if you're going to get something that has ability haste on it, so if you're going like a lethality item, which is not super popular right now, something like Opportunity, then you could do it. So it's a little convoluted, but even if you don't go for like full Jack stacks, even just taking it to get the 5 stack bonus where you get 6 extra AD, you can get that on your first back. So that'll still give you like 500 gold worth of stats. The 6 AD plus 5 ability haste, because ability haste is valued at an absurd 200 or like 50 gold each right now when it used to be like almost 25. So that was a little odd, but anyways. So if you go first strike, please do Jack of all trades. I think Time Warp Tonic is really good too, but a lot of people are going Biscuits. This does give you a little bit of extra mana, a little bit of extra sustain in the laning phase, but if you go PTA, then you're going to be able to get Presence of Mind, which is going to give you even better mana sustain, and then you're going to be able to get stuff like the extra attack speed, lifesteal, whatever, and then something like Coup de Grace. So I think PTA is probably better. You do get free boots. You get magical footwear, and because she moves so fast by default with her W, you can get away with not buying boots early. So that is pretty nice, specifically with her. So I don't know. This does give you a little bit of extra gold, and you can trigger it, you know, off of your Qs in the laning phase. So it's pretty good. If you want to do the long range, just blow everybody up with the R, it's pretty good. And then as far as the rest of her build, some people are opening with Ghostblade. I really just don't like this item after the nerf. Like, she's already fast. This does help you, and movement speed is nice because that allows you to get in a position to press your R, you know, and make sure that you're going to get the right angle. But it just doesn't have crit. I just feel like it just doesn't scale that well. It is cheaper. It's 2,700 gold, so that is nice. But I would probably rather just go Infinity Edge or Collector here. So Collector is very efficient. As we've seen before, it's going to give you attack damage, critical strike, and lethality. So you're still going to get the lethality that you would have gotten with Ghostblade. It has 5 less AD, but it's going to have 25% crit now. And this actually, I think, has 60 AD now on it, too. So It's, you know, it's going to be the same attack damage, very similar lethality. You're just getting 25% crit, the execute when people go below 5% health, which is very easy to trigger with your ultimate because it's checking so often with those bullets that you're going to be able to, you know, KS a bunch of kills in a team fight with Collector. And you get extra gold off of it. So, you know, when you get this item, if you get, you know, 8 kills in a game, that's 200 extra gold. So that's not a huge deal, but it does add up. So yeah, I would just rather go Collector. Now, Opportunity actually does have a pretty high win rate with her. You do get the extra lethality, but I would stick with Infinity Edge or Collector. Remember that her ultimate can crit. All of those, you know, bullets can crit. So lethality is good for her spells, but her ultimate can crit, and I'm pretty sure her Q can crit too. And especially if the Q hits something that kills it. So if it like hits a minion, kills a minion, and then gets that bonus damage and crits on top of that with Infinity Edge, I mean, it's gonna like do 80% of somebody's health, right? In the early game, if you rush Infinity Edge and you just happen to get a crit off of a dead minion Q bounce, it's gonna be nuts. People are just gonna like jump out of their seat. It's gonna be so much damage. So, anyways, I think that's worth it potentially. Gentile arrows, man. People are sleeping on this. I mean, let me read this item again. Come on, don't make me actually spell stuff correctly. Come on, bruh. Oh, Yuntal arrows. Okay, I guess I'm like super far off. Make sure I'm reading this right. What the hell is it showing me? Lore? Who cares? Oh, it's an actual place? There. Basic damage. Okay. So, actually, I don't know a few abilities. Okay, so that may not work with, I don't know if that's going to work with the Hurricane or not. Critically strike, inflict a bleed on them where they take, I think it's 35% extra AD. Subsequent applications of the bleed can stack, but do not refresh the duration of the previous bleed. Okay. Serrated Edge deals default damage and thus will not trigger spell effects. Okay. Also triggers on abilities that critically strike, but only those that are treated like a basic attack or deal modified damage. Okay, I think the Q would work though, but not the ultimate. And I do not know about the bolts, Hurricane bolts. Okay, but anyways, I think that could be a good build on her if you just want to go like Collector, Infinity Edge, and Yuntal arrows, and then Dom. So same thing as Jhin. Basically, if you want to get the 4 crit thing, you can do Infinity Edge first, but then getting Collector second, I feel is a little bit odd because you want the lethality ASAP. So probably just Collector, Infinity, and then either Yuntal or Doms. Okay, Twitch, and I'll speed it up because I know this is taking a while here. Twitch, really good champ. I could see an argument for Twitch being slightly lower because if he is in a tough lane, it can be a little bit harder. But if he's strong-sided or if you get ahead, he's one of the most dominant solo queue ADCs because no one ever respects the invisibility. They just complain about him being fed like he's 5-0, lanes break, and then he just keeps killing people in side lanes or killing the jungler over and over again. And they're just like, well, Twitch is fed, guess the game's over, right? Like, it's just so demoralizing when he just keeps popping up because no one ever respects it. They just want to walk out and farm, and they just get so frustrated that they can't do that. They can't play the game because Twitch is there. And people don't buy control wards at lower elos. So he's a real terror. He's very good at team fighting, and he can incidentally use crit very well. Now, historically, a lot of people have done Blather and King on Twitch, people have done on-hit stuff, Blazer and King, all of that, but people forget, like, he can do crit stuff, too. Well, let me close a couple of these tabs, and then grab the, there we go. Just to see what the win rates are with a couple of different things. So I would suspect that people are still doing Blazer and King. I think people are building him wrong. Yeah, Infinity Edge. Now, it's not a massively higher win rate, but it is. I just feel like, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I feel like Blazer and King is just so much worse now that it only does 6% range damage. Again, these stats are off. They're not accurate. And it doesn't have crit on it. So I think if you just open with Infinity Edge or even Hurricane Rush on Twitch can kind of make sense because it spreads his poison out so well in team fights with his ultimate. But just Infinity Edge, Hurricane, and then either arrows or Doms, I think is still going to be the way to go. And his auto attacks, his R, I believe, would trigger Yun Tao. Because his R is our basic attacks. I think they are modified. It just splashes and goes through people, but they are modified by things like Ninja Tabby. I think that's really what the or Plated Steel Caps as they're called now. I think that's really what the metric is for Yun Tao. If Plated Steel Caps modifies it, it counts. If it doesn't modify it with its passive, it doesn't count. So I think he has a lot of potential. So he can push. It's not like super fast, but if he drops his little thing of poison on the wave, he really has to do it when people... I guess he can do it when people are around. But you just drop that big circle, just auto attack a bunch, and then contaminate, and just back up. So he can, like, push sort of fast. Not super fast, but, like, above average if he uses those cooldowns. He can take people off guard, does a lot of damage. It's really the invisibility, though. And he has attack speed built in. With his Q, which I believe you're maxing that second. You're probably maxing Contaminate first and Q second. And so he gets a lot of attack speed built into his kit. So yes, he does like lethal tempo, but he's really good with other things. Probably does press the attack. Yeah. So this is pretty easy. When he hits 3 people with this, it's going to do press the attack. However, now, remember, it does that extra 8% damage to everybody. So Twitch is, one person where press the attack might actually be better as it is now on Twitch than the older version. Because now whenever he presses Contaminate, after he's triggered press the attack, and everybody's getting hit by these Hurricane Bolts and everything, then it's going to do 8% more damage on the Contaminate, 8% more damage on the Yun Tao, and all that stuff. So, I think he's pretty solid. Again, you have to be in a lane where you're not going to get completely run over, and he is best with an Enchanter, that especially one that can buff him up, give him attack speed, movement speed, so like Lulu, historically extremely good with him. Melio, probably really good with him. Janna's good with him. But he can do well with engaged tanks as also. It just needs to be something that doesn't super require, a lot of early game kills to get going. So, I think overall, Twitch pretty good. I wouldn't argue if he was a slightly lower tier. Obviously, you're not going to see him in Challenger or Pro very much, but I just think he's a terror in solo queue, and people are really sleeping on they forget how good crit Twitch is. Although they might keep forgetting about it because everyone's not building what I think are the best items on him. Okay, Draven, really good. Just did get hot nerfed a little bit. I closed the patch notes there, but... the baseline gold off of his passive went from 40 to 30. And I think his axes do like 5 less damage at all ranks. But he's still really strong right now. Now, he's someone that might actually like Bloodthirster early on instead of some of these other items. So he doesn't really care about attack speed as much because he wants to be catching those axes and throwing them anyways. If you get so much attack speed with Draven, then a lot of times you're going to be throwing axes, like you're auto-attacking without catching the spinning axes and throwing it. So you're losing out. You're not necessarily losing damage, but your auto-attacks don't scale as well with attack speed as his other things because the flight time doesn't scale with your attack speed, I'm pretty sure. So you're going to be throwing, once you get so much attack speed, you're throwing the unempowered autos. And so it's like, yes, you're doing more damage, but you're still not doing that crazy damage with the axes. The bonus axe damage doesn't crit also, but it does apply lifesteal. So that's why lifesteal historically is very good on him. So people might be rushing Bloodthirster on him. I think something like Bloodthirster into Infinity Edge could be very good. Bloodthirster does let you take very aggressive trades early on. Now he has a negative win rate, so keep that in mind. But he's one where he can snowball, and he does require you to have practice with him typically, because those catching the axes, like that mechanic is really weird, and no other champ really has that. So yeah, it looks like a lot of people are going Bloodthirster into Infinity Edge. I think the Yuntal arrows, people are probably sleeping on those. Yes, they have a high win rate, third item. A lot of people are going Collector, and that's why he has a low win rate, but the Infinity Edge or Bloodthirster both have higher win rates. Infinity Edge in particular has a much higher win rate. So, I mean, Collector, it is good, but it's a lower AD item. It's only 60 AD. Infinity Edge and Bloodthirster both have 80 now. So, now the odd thing is, if you go Bloodthirster, though, you're not going to have that critical strike like we talked about before. So you're losing out on 1,000 gold worth of crit with that item. So I don't know. I might be inclined to just go Infinity Edge, Yuntal, and like Doms or something on him. I don't know. Maybe I'm too high on Yuntal, but he definitely claps. Whatever you want to do, get crit with him, get Infinity Edge, first or second item, and you're going to be deleting people. You do a lot of damage. So, Draven, good. Almost no utility. He really needs to be strong-sided. He really needs to secure kills, or else his passive just doesn't exist. Not great in team fights unless he's super fed. Only attacks one target at a time. You know, doesn't have a lot of attack speed in his build, but especially if it's a squishy, he can delete them pretty quickly. So, he is getting played in pro some, which is rare. Usually that means that he's super strong. And I think that these changes benefit him quite a bit because he didn't use lethal tempo anyways. So, very strong if you're strong-sided. He can definitely bully people out. You want to pair him with an aggressive support that's going to try to lock down those kills early. Your Nautilus, Leona, those types of champs. He's going to be really good. Okay, and then Samira, she just got hot nerfed a little bit as well. We talked about her a bit earlier. She's one of the few ADCs. I think if you do want to try a jack of all trades with her, you could. I think you probably still just want to do Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm. But, you know, she has pretty good poke, good all in, good at sort of blocking hooks or dodging different projectiles, you know, with her little circle spin thing. And then when she starts popping her ult, she's got, you know, Collector, Infinity Edge. I don't know about the Yuntal arrows on her. You'd probably rather just go Doms. You can go Bloodthirster on her too, but again, you're losing out on the crit if you do that. It just depends on how much the lifesteal matters. But yeah, super strong champ, especially if she gets reset. She can just delete people, particularly if they have a lot of melees. She's going to be very good into that. Tristana has a bit of a lower win rate, but I think she's still really good. They did change... what is it? Hail of Blades. So now that was what she would take just so she would get those 4 auto attacks off faster to reset the bomb and get her jump back. So they did nerf it from it was like 115%. Now it's like 85% extra attack speed. So it's still pretty good. She'll still probably want that. I mean, there might be a world where you press the attack on her just so that when you get your third attack in, then the bomb's going to do the extra damage when it explodes. On the 4th shot, your ult's going to do extra damage. So I could see PTA on her, but Halo Blades is probably still pretty good too. And especially if you can master her jump, it's really hard to lock her down. She can even dodge things like Nautilus's ult, one of the few ADCs that can get away from that if you buffer and time that jump. So it's pretty high skill cap to learn exactly when you can do that to pull that jump off. But if you're really good at buffering that jump, then you can get out of almost all the CC. And she's just a terror. She gets a lot of range as she goes on throughout the game. She does start off low range, so that's kind of tough. It's hard to control waves with her, so that's why you don't see her in pro in bot lane very often, because the explosive shot forces the stuff to explode. So it's hard to last hit on her tower, and you're almost always going to be pushing by default. So if you're trying to build a slow wave or just do like more advanced things, you know, stack a wave for a dive, that type of stuff, it's harder to do that with Tristana. But for just jumping on people, getting resets, killing them, dodging stuff, just playing YOLO Q, she's very, very good. Takes towers quickly as well, scales pretty well over time, has burst damage, has sustained damage. She's got a lot going for her. So I still think Tristana is really good, underrated. She's getting played in solo queue or in mid lane at MSI right now, but I think she could still be good in the bottom lane too. And then Kai'Sa is one that has kind of a low win rate right now, but I've seen Kai'Sa's do pretty well. I think a lot of people were probably building her wrong. There is one that I saw that was just totally clapping people. It was just going like a standard Infinity Edge, you know, type of build. I think it was Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, Doms. I don't know if she got Collector or not. But I think a lot of people are still doing like on hit Kai'Sa, which I think is just too slow. I think Kraken is just probably not good right now. This takes way too many auto attacks. I think a lot of times you just want damage right now. Like you want to deal that damage up front and fast. I think a lot of the on-hit builds are just not great. You notice like most of the top champions here are going to be, you know, upfront damage types of champs. They're not going to be these slower sustained damage things. Now, some things are still, like Cog's still doing well, like 51% statistically. But a lot of the on-hit people are struggling. And people are still building Kai'Sa that way. I think a lot of people just don't read patch notes or just don't think. I don't know. But I mean, she's still going to struggle if you go like Infinity Edge first, but I mean, maybe you do need that attack speed to be able to level up your invisibility or whatever. Kai'Sa is very weird because she has really specific stats that you need. It looks like Static Shiv is just absolutely awful. 43% win rate. Like, do not buy this item after it got turbo nerfed. I think most of the Zeal items are pretty bad from a bargain perspective, except for Hurricane. I think can be pretty good. But yeah, I think just like Infinity Edge and then Collector, or, you know, Collector then Infinity Edge, something like that is probably going to be better. They changed Flicker Blades around. I mean, maybe people were trying to go Flicker Blades with her as well. I don't know. She's kind of a mess. I could definitely see an argument for her being lower down the priority list as well. And it is a little awkward because several of her abilities deal magic damage and, you know, none of her abilities crit. So that is awkward, but she still has nice utility. Like, she's got good wave clear. Her missiles, her Q has really nice, like, scaling on it in terms of AD, so it's doing a lot of damage. So I don't know. Like I said, I could see an argument for her being lower, but I did have someone on my team, a Kai'Sa, that was like totally clapping people, doing tons of damage, just doing the, you know, crit build type of stuff. So we'll see. Just lots of utility, kind of short range, but nice wave clear, really good with a dive comp if you can get access to their backline and just delete people. She's pretty strong. Then the rest of these, I'll just fly through these just really quickly because we're almost at an hour here, but you know, Draven still really good, particularly if you pair him with Nami. I would probably go for a crit build type of thing now. Again, I'm not entirely sure what that would look like. Probably just Infinity Edge or Collector, Infinity Edge, Doms, you know, something like that. You can get a Zeal item in these builds too. I just feel like, again, Zeal is a bait. They just nerfed attack speed really hard. He doesn't particularly need it because he can just combo people out. So it's up to you. There's a lot of weird things you could build on him, but I think that going for that more crit-centric path is probably pretty good. Senna can be good. I mean, a lot of the reason why she's played in Pro and really where she excels is by effectively being a support Senna with a tank as your kind of carry that's farming, just because the passive souls are where she gets a lot of her power. So actually giving her gold and getting less souls, I'm not sure. The more I think about it, the more I want to put her in like C tier. But she can still do all right. I mean, she didn't use lethal tempo, obviously, so she didn't really suffer from that. I'm not sure if she wants to get Infinity Edge or like how that scales on her. Seems like it's kind of odd. She's usually doing like lethality type of stuff, but she still has a lot of utility. It's kind of a weird setup. I probably should have put her in C, but she can work. Kog'Maw, you still have to do the on hit with Kog'Maw, I think. Probably just like Kraken, Ginsu's, Terminus, something like that. You can do crit on him. It's a little weird, kind of like Kaisa, but he does have a lot of range with his W, and he has mixed damage, so if they try to get a bunch of armor to counter your crit, you're still dealing magic damage to him. So, he does want attack speed, so that you can get his, more auto attacks in with his W while that's proccing. And he's very good if you pair him with like a Lulu or some other enchanter that can protect him, but most of the time I'd just rather play Jinx if she's available. If you just want that like hyper scaling, long range, auto attack based champ, I'd probably just rather have Jinx. But Kog'Maw can still work well. Ashe, I'm not really sure like which item she's going to be getting these days. She could go for Infinity Edge is just so odd on her. I think you don't get anything extra off of the passive because you can't crit. I can't remember if it gives your auto attacks just more damage or not. Like, I don't remember the interaction with Ashe, but she does have a slow. She does have, I think people are still just doing, like, Kraken on-hit stuff with her. Or at least, like, Kraken attack speed stuff. I don't know if they're probably not, like, doing Ginsu's. Let me just see. So I would guess, like, Kraken, Phantom Dancer, Terminus or something? I don't know. Kraken, Phantom Dancer, Hurricane. So I guess Infinity Edge has some interaction because people get it, but people are going Trinity Force second? That seems extremely odd. But, I mean, that's what they're doing. Phantom Dancer also has a pretty good win rate. I wouldn't do Blade of the Ruined King. It still has an okay win rate, but it's been really nerfed for range. So yeah, it looks like most people are just doing Kraken first. Yeah, basically what I said. Kraken, Phantom Dancer, Terminus seems to be the most popular. Hurricane can also work. Infinity Edge is also decent. So yeah, just a bunch of attack speed stuff, but not Ginsu's. So it just doesn't have, she doesn't have any on-hit effects for that to trigger. And then Vayne is decent. People might be going crit Vayne. I'm not sure. If you want to go for on-hit, please do Kraken instead of Blade of the Ruined King. Just Kraken, Ginsu, probably Phantom Dancer. Jhin, good range, nice ult. On-hit, again, without Blade of the Ruined King, it's a bit odd. So, I guess just same thing, like Kraken, Ginsu, Phantom Dancer. Or, I mean, I don't know, like, how Hurricane interacts with his Blight stacks, if you can stack multiple people and then, throw your E in to trigger it on multiple people in fights, but Varus is okay, he does have the ult, but he's kind of a sitting duck. He can do a lot of damage later on. I would do on-hit, I wouldn't do the lethality. I think that build's kind of off. And then, we've got the other ADCs. I've got Ezreal down kind of low because he's hard to play to begin with. I think his builds have all been changed. The change of Essence Reaver feels really bad. Aphelios can do a lot of damage, but he takes a long time to come online. I feel like he just can get bullied by other champs. He is very good when he has his red-white gun, but I think most other combinations, it can be sort of tough for him in the early game. Caitlyn is very popular right now, and her win rate is okay, but I just don't trust it. I think it's fake. Caitlyn is just really hard to play mechanically. You have to be landing your net, trap combos. Like, you got to be maximizing those headshots because her auto attack speed is really slow and just doesn't scale that well. Now, I will say, the fact that lethal tempo's out of the game, auto attacks, no one else is going to be outscaling you as hard, right? Because they scale a lot better with lethal tempo than she did. So it did kind of even the playing field for her, but I would still just rather play Jinx most of the time. You're still going to have really big range, and I think it's just going to be a lot easier to manage than Caitlyn. Caitlyn is really good at like 4 items, or if you are consistently landing, you know, headshots on people, nets, traps, all that stuff, she can be good. But I just think that a lot of her power really starts unlocking at higher elos, where people have the mechanics to pull off her combos better, and where they're going to leverage that range a lot more in the laning phase. If you just sit there and last hit minions in the lane as Caitlyn, that's a fail. You have to be denying the enemy, pressuring, pushing, pressuring towers. She's all about pressure, and I just feel like most people just don't play her aggressively enough to, you know, warrant picking her over other ADCs that are just more consistent, easier to execute on, and scale better. Okay, and then like AP champs, I don't think are that great right now overall. I think Brand and Ziggs are less so, but Brand is probably okay if you want to play Brand ADC. If your team's just like all AD and you just have to play an AP bottom, Brand is probably okay if you land your combos. The Ashes, Blackfire Torch, plus Leandries is pretty good on him. And then Seraphine is probably okay. Like a Seraphine Sona type of comp. Just like super enchanters. As long as you have enough carries in other roles, she can be okay. But I probably would not play it right now. And then I've got Kalista kind of in the dumpster. I think she's just too hard mechanically for most people to play correctly under Diamond. You just really have to leverage that ult as engage and kind of be coordinated with your support too. So I just don't really trust the Kalista, especially after a lot of the nerfs to things like Blatherin King, the nerfs to a lot of the attack speed items. Corki's just kind of in the gutter right now. They reworked him. I don't remember everything they changed, but he's got like a 43% win rate, so I think he's just having a hard time. Zeri, there might be some weird builds, and I'm sure she can still win games, but you know, the fact they nerfed Essence Reaver is really hard for her, and I don't know, she just requires a lot of mechanics and a lot of items to work. And then Smolder has just been nerfed repeatedly a billion times, and they've nerfed all of his items. They nerfed Essence Reaver, they nerfed Navori, they nerfed Shojin for ranged. So they just nerfed everything about that champ. So I just think he's having a super hard time right now. But anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did. And I'll see you next time.